Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. And as Forest's unbeaten run is over after a 1-0 defeat at the City Grounds of Fulham, more VAR controversy at the City Grounds, and did Nuno get it wrong from the start with his team selection and tactics? To discuss all of that and much more, I am sure, throughout, joined first of all by podcast regular Talk Sports finest, Max Scott. Max, good to see you, mate. You make a return. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Good to see you. Looking forward to chatting about Forest.
Yeah, absolutely. And a positive start to the season. And to be fair, Max, I don't think you've been on actually for a review game yet. So sorry to bring you in as Forest lose their first game, but there you go. Someone's got to do it. Also joined by someone that makes their podcast debut, Sara Bowen, who has Sarah, you've sat by me for so long at the City Ground up until a few years ago when our seats got moved, and I've been begging you for ages to do the podcast. So good to see you. And how are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yeah, a bit disappointed about Saturday, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get over it.
Yeah, we will. A small blip in hopefully, well, all but a positive start. Max, if you just want to kick us off then really with your thoughts on the game and what you made of it. I thought first half wasn't too bad, but there was a sense of I just thought kind of at the City Ground there was a sense of a little bit of maybe complacency and everyone expected to beat Fulham, and then when the team was announced, everyone seemed a little bit downbeat.
I wouldn't say there's necessarily an expectation to beat Fulham myself. I certainly didn't feel that. I think Fulham have shown what you need to do when you get promoted from the Championship to keep, sort of sustain yourself as a Premier League team comfortably. So in that regard, they're ahead of us. They've got a really good record against us. There's not another team that Fulham have beaten more in the top flight than Forest. And, you know, we saw against Liverpool that those records necessarily don't mean anything when it comes to it. So I mean, before the game, I thought this is going to be a really, really tough. I think my feelings was it'd be nice to watch us win at home. It's felt like a long time. I think last time it happened was in April. And, you know, the game, yeah, it was disappointing because I think that we should have at least got something out of it and maintained that unbeaten record. That wasn't meant to be. The setup was strange at the start. But just as an anecdote, on the way back on the train back, Max, I spoke to somebody who said to me, I think it's time we looked elsewhere for a manager. I mean, it's absolutely gobsmacking that could come out of the brain of a Nottingham Forest fan, considering how solid we look under Nuno. And I know we lost that game, and we can talk about the goal and the VAR, but there is... I didn't know how to respond, and I didn't really respond, because if someone can come out with such codswallop, then there's nothing any reasonable explanation can do to save you. If you think that after, you know, a slightly disappointing result and performance against Fulham that we need to sack our manager and get a new one, do me a favour. And so I think maybe that made me feel even more defensive about that performance. Of course it wasn't vintage, of course it wasn't free flowing, but I still think we look solid. We look like we belong. We look really difficult to score against, and it's taken a really poor VAR call yet again to make the difference. And so, look, I'm feeling really positive about the way that Forest have started this season, and I'm not going to let one result and a slightly disappointing performance to ruin that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to say, I want whatever that fan on the train is drinking, kind of coming out with that stuff. Sarah, what did you make of it? You know, you follow Forest a lot, home and away, and it was disappointing, as kind of Max alludes to, especially given the recent home record. We haven't won in April, won since April last season, which was funny enough against Fulham. Yeah, on the 2nd of April. So it was disappointing in a way, but you know, maybe just a small blip along a pretty positive start. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, before the match, everyone was like saying in the pub, you know, have you seen the team? And I hadn't seen the team, and then I kind of caught up with it at the game because, yeah, it was a change. We had to do something because Morgan Gibbs-White wasn't in it. I thought Jota would probably just slip in there, but he obviously went for, was it two up front? I think it was a 4-4-2. But I thought Taiwo looked okay. I can't really say he got it wrong. we kind of nullified each other first half. And I think we're very similar teams. They have fast-pacey wingers. We have fast-pacey wingers. And I think Nuno perhaps tried to do something different that was probably going to keep them quiet. Or maybe it was working first half, 0-0. And then second half, change it, bring on the fast, wingers. And maybe we would have got the advantage because ours would have been fresh. So, yeah, did he get it wrong? I don't know. Would we have won if he'd have started with the wingers? I don't know, because I've not got a crystal ball. But I'm certainly not going to be too down about it. I thought the game itself was pretty disappointing. I mean, the guy behind us, we've got some hospitality behind us now. And if he said, it's too easy, this is only Fulham, Nuno, you've got it wrong today, 10 times, he said it 100. It's like Fulham are a good team. Yes, they went up the same time as us 3 years ago, but actually people seem to forget that they went up and down three times before that. So they were building a Premier League squad long before us. So, yeah, disappointed. Would have probably really liked to seen a better Forest. Thought the only thing between us was, like Max said, a really poor VAR call. If the ref had given that in real time, I don't think I would have had a lot to say about it, because he did go down the back of his Achilles, but he was looking at the ball. It was soft. But for VAR to step in, surely that has to be clear and obvious. I'm a bit confused with this clear and obvious, because either VAR get it right and put it and make it fair, the game, or that they let the ref it. I don't understand. And they make the call. If that was a Stonewall penalty, fair enough. But it was too soft for VAR to step in. That's my opinion. And I don't get this fair and obvious, because it's not fair and obvious, because they seem to step in when they feel like it and not when they don't. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting one, and we seem to be talking about VAR again. And I don't know what you think, Max, but I kind of totally agree with Sarah. And it is frustrating that, again, it's another game where Forest is talking about referee controversy, and we've talked about on the podcast so many times. We don't want to blame referees. We don't want to blame, officials but they're making match-changing decisions, which have ultimately led to Fulham's penalty and goal, which has then beaten Forest. And I think the more you look at it, the more you think it's quite soft. And then for VAR to overturn it and send the referee to the monitor just didn't make any sense to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. And I think that the fact that Elanga then isn't given another soft penalty for us, it sort of demonstrates the inconsistencies within the PGMOL and what a huge job Howard Webb's got on his hands to try to change the culture there. Where you look at rugby and how collegiate it is, and the way that referees in rugby work together and how transparent it is. You can hear everything. Whereas, there's this toxic culture at the top of the PGMOL where it's all about ranking and status. And we saw that with Anthony Taylor overturning Rob Jones's decision from the sideline, which to me is absolutely unprecedented. And the fact that that's happened hasn't received enough press for me, that a fourth official has changed the decision of a referee. So that's happened the last game. And if you're talking about setting a standard within a game, then we should have had a penalty for the foul on Antti Elanga, which would have been soft, but they've already set the standard within the game of giving soft penalties. So, yeah, it's really disappointing. But like you say, it's really tiresome moaning about VAR, because we all know it. It's not just Forest. We just feel it because it happens to us as well. But it's happening all over the league. And so this is a problem within top-level football in this country that you don't necessarily see in places like Germany. And so, we want that to change. But regardless, it would have been nice for Forest to be able to sort of get a goal back from open play. I really like the positive substitutions that Nuno made. And I just had a moment in the second half where I thought, crikey, Steve Cooper never did this. And I'm not trying to make vast comparisons, but that was something that frustrated me under Cooper. Is he'd bring Andre Ayew on in the 88th minute, and you'd think, crikey Moses, let's do something. And I liked the urgency that Nuno showed. So yeah, I just think Fulham aren't any mugs, and losing, there's no shame losing to them. Of course, it's frustrating, but we're in a really good place at the minute, I think.
And I suppose just staying on VAR as well, Max, the Telegraph reported yesterday now that the Forest kind of hierarchy came out and said that VAR is is failing football fans. And of course, the hierarchy are entitled to their opinion, and Marinakis has lots of ambition. But I just wonder whether Forest kind of coming out again and criticising VAR and criticising referees, almost, does it put us in the limelight too much, or do you think they have every right to do it?
I think they've already put themselves in the limelight. From last season, that tweet that was viewed however 50 odd million times. And so I think that they've sort of made their bed and they're lying in it now. That's what the club decide to do now is to publicly critique. And I think the fact that they've done it, the way that they've done it's much better. Posting out angry tweets at the end of the game isn't what the club should be doing. But if there's something slightly more formal, a way that they do it, then I think that's sort of a little bit more palatable. Because last season, that tweet, lots of fans agreed with it. Agreed with what the content of the tweet. I think it was the manner of the tweet and the fact that it was a tweet it was what was controversial. So I think the PGMOL needs its feet held to the coals a little bit, because it's not good enough. And maybe it needs more clubs to do that, as long as it's in the right way, if you know what I mean. That's how you start getting changes, by putting pressure on them. And I do think there's a big difference between putting out a statement like that and sort of, waiting for a referee in the tunnel, or appearing to wait for a referee in the tunnel. They're two very different things. And I think if you do that if you send messages in that way, then that's okay, because it's not good enough from VAR. It's not good enough from the PGMOL.
Do you think Forest should have had a penalty on Anthony Elanga, Sarah?
Well, when I was watching it in the game, it was hard to tell. But when I looked on it on the highlights, it would have been soft, wouldn't it? But I don't think it would have been any softer than what they were given. And like, at the end of the day, that was the only difference between us, which was really sad. That's what was disappointing. It had 0-0, but it had one goal in it, and I wouldn't have minded if they'd have scored from open play. And it was a shame, like what Max says, that we couldn't score from open play, but we didn't really. And second half, we put the wingers on, but we seemed to lose it in midfield. They had so much space in midfield, and I don't know. I was just waiting for the clock to tick down. I don't know. That's how I felt. It was just
Yeah, I think it was a boring game. I mean, I think anyone watching that, in terms of as a neutral point of view, must have, and particularly first half, must have been quite bored. I mean, second half it kind of gets lively a little bit. Let's stay on Nuno's team selection, Max. And part of me thought, just seeing it and kind of viewing the team before kickoff, I get Nuno tried something different, and he tried, we trust him given the brilliant tactical selection and team selection away at Liverpool, which gave Forest the first win there in 55 years. But in terms of almost not playing Anthony Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi at home at the City Ground, where you feel like Forest should go and try and play that free-flowing attacking football and from the off really, attacking Fulham. They're not a Man City, not an Arsenal. So, to not take the wingers, almost their positions out of the equation, but to not stop two of your best players in Anthony Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi, I just thought it was a mistake. I don't know about you.
Yeah, in a game that clearly was winnable, I've sort of put a little bit of praise on Fulham, but I think we're as good as them, and we could have beat them. So to do that was. I mean, I was shocked. Do you know that sort of Barclaysman thing that when and everyone's tweeting sort of pictures of Northeast Premier League players? When I saw that team lineup, it felt like a full-on 2002 Premier League sort of starting 11, two big lads up top. But yeah, I do think Nuno got it wrong. We haven't won a game at home this season. We're not won one since April. You want to see your Anthony Elangas, your Callum Hudson-Odois. You want to see them really sort of building form at home and winning games for us at home, and particularly considering the point at Brighton, which I thought was a really good point. It was a great game. It was back and forth. We dominated the first half an hour. I think if you're starting those players against Brighton and you're getting a point away at Brighton, which again is a really good result, then why not do that at home? It was bizarre. I wonder, I think sort of Sarah might have alluded to it earlier, without Morgan Gibbs-White, he's trying to do something different. But I don't know. Yeah, it just felt bizarre to me. Again, it could have worked. There were half chances in that first half, which on another day would have come off for us. And there's a fine line between genius and insanity. And that that call to start those two's got people asking questions, but I think we could have easily won that game. I just think it was a real game of fine margins, and it probably should have been 0-0, and we'd have felt slightly less aggrieved because we got a point from it. But it was bizarre.
It was. Want to touch on Taiwo. Obviously he comes off kind of around the half-time mark, and Sarah, Taiwo's a player that seems to split opinion at the minute. Chris Wood's kind of the number one choice in terms of starting up front. I mean, he had his chances. He's always difficult to play against, Taiwo, kind of the way he runs and the way he turns sometimes. But I just feel he's almost just still lacking that match fitness and ultimately that sharpness to get in front of goal and do what Taiwo's done.
Do you know, it's funny, isn't it, when you watch a match, because we can all see it differently. There's no right or wrong answer, is there? I thought Taiwo looked quite good, actually, and I didn't see Chris Wood touch the ball much at all. I don't know whether that's because of the way that they were playing up front. And he had that chance. He fought for that ball that went out, and we got a corner from. I just was surprised he started, because he's not really been playing at all. He hasn't really played in all season, so for him to start a game at home when you want to go and win it, because you've not won a game, all season, and there is a winnable game, but yeah, it's a tough opposition. I don't even think there's an easy one in the Premier League. So you did really, it was really surprising, but on his day, he's great, isn't he? I mean, against Chelsea last year, the ball from Elanga, the Arsenal game, but he's been injured. It's been well documented. He has been, he's had quite a bad injury and he's had to have surgery, and then perhaps he came back a bit early and he's protecting him. I don't know what was going through Nuno to make those changes. He must have seen something in training, and with the Fulham game, I'm no manager, and like I say, I'm not really an expert on tactics, but I was surprised, and I think it just highlighted how much a game maker Morgan Gibbs-White is. He might not be on the score sheet, he might not be on the assist tally, but oh my God, we miss him, don't we, in midfield? I thought Anderson looked really, when he came off, he looked really disappointed. I turned to Nick and I was like, he looks well annoyed to be being taken off. And I thought Dominguez looked okay, but there's something was just missing, and I just do think it was Morgan Gibbs-White.
We'll touch on Morgan in a minute.
Sorry, I'm the Morgan Gibbs-White fan, but yeah, sorry, I know you were talking about Taiwo, but yeah, I mean, yeah, you've got to give him a chance, haven't you? And he obviously saw the game as his chance to take it. I don't know whether he went off at half-time injured or whether he'd always planned to take him off. So, but I thought he was doing okay. Yeah,
and I suppose in a way, Max, as well. I saw some comments that suggested Forest sell Taiwo in January, which may just be jumping the gun slightly, and also realising that, as Sarah's alluded to brilliantly, about him being injured and him having a lengthy time out, and the mum was rushing him back, and it was odd to see him up front with Chris Wood playing two up front. I think in modern day football, you cover football every week, Max, so you know as much as every fan that it's not a common occurrence, and particularly in the Premier League, you see it in the lower leagues sometimes, but in the Premier League, we get used to that 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3s, and to see almost a 4-4-2 that Nuno set up with, and especially Taiwo and Chris Wood that haven't played together that much. I just think that you could tell that they hadn't played together, and almost the chemistry in the final third just didn't work for Forest.
No, it didn't. But I agree with Sarah. It wasn't like he was woeful. He didn't do much wrong. He didn't get much, and therefore he couldn't do much. But I sit in the Peter Taylor stand, and he was running the channel really well. Like he biffed off defenders a couple of times, and got the crowd up, made a couple of chances, or made it look awkward. And look, yeah, it wasn't like having Haaland there, but he never has been. But we know what Taiwo can do when he's sharp. He's much sharper than he looks. He clearly needs a long run up. He clearly needs time to get fit, to get sharp, to get agile. Like he looks like if he'd stretch his groin, his leg would snap off. He looks like he just needs a bit sort of like WD-40 in his sort of hinges, and that just takes a bit of time. But I don't think no one on the pitch was sort of incredible. So I don't know why. I think sometimes maybe we hold Taiwo to a slightly different standard because he's a striker, and then also because he went on that incredible run of form, a bit like Chris Wood did last season in our first season in the Premier League, and his goals essentially kept us up. So I'm more than happy to be patient with Taiwo. I do think it'd probably be good if we could get another striker as well. We're developing as a club. We're bringing in more quality players, but I'm not worried about him. I think he was probably taken off when he was taken off on purpose as part of like a rehabilitation sort of program that he's on. Because the last thing we want is for his hamstring to snap again, and then that maybe looks like it's over for him. The other thing I'd just say about Elliot Anderson is I wonder, he looked like he sort of had a little twinge in the Brighton game, and I just wonder if with Morgan Gibbs-White out, I reckon they've maybe said to him, you're having 60 minutes or 65, whatever it was when he was taken off 55, and that's it, because we don't want to risk it with him. I don't know that. I've not heard anything, but I think that's because I can't think of any other reason why I would have taken him off, to be honest, because I think he looked really lively in that game. But yeah, that's just my theory for Anderson.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that Anderson, if Morgan Gibbs-White isn't playing for Forest, he's probably your go-to midfielder. And in terms of almost recreating what Morgan does, he does come close. But he certainly isn't Morgan. And that was a player that Forest massively missed, Sarah. You alluded to it slightly earlier, but it just goes to show how crucial, the England international is to Forest.
I didn't think you'd notice, actually. Yeah, he is. I mean, you only have to sit and watch him and his little touches. And I know he annoys some people because sometimes he'll give the ball away. But, the times he gives the ball away, he's probably done 3 or 4 really decent passes that we haven't always noticed because he's quick.
And he wins it back half the time, doesn't he? He gets back and he does it.
He does. He wins it back, yeah. I mean, I just think he's great. He is. Yeah. I mean, he's not playing for England for no reason, is he? He works so hard for us as well. And obviously, a lot of the time when we're breaking on the counter, he's one of them up there running, or he's made that pass. So, and we didn't really see much of that, did we, on Saturday? I didn't see many counter. It was a totally different game to what I've seen all season. But I can't get too disappointed because it's just, I can imagine if I was just seeing the home games, then maybe I would be, because I've not seen him win yet this season. But I'm hoping he's back on Sunday for the Chelsea game. I mean, hopefully it will just be a fine, because I know there's talk about him missing it. But yeah, I mean, I think he's great. If we can hang on to him this year was a bonus, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And all being well, Morgan should be back on Sunday for an even bigger game away at Chelsea. And you just wonder as well, Max, and maybe I'm kind of speculating too much here, but when you've got a player like Morgan Gibbs-White, and it'd be the same if Ryan Yates wasn't there, or even Anthony Elanga, Callum Hudson-Odoi that isn't featuring at all in terms of the match day squad, whether that affects other players. Morgan's one of the leaders in the dressing room. He's, I'm sure he leads morale in a way and is a real crucial player, shall we say, to Forest's almost team spirit and team atmosphere. So you wonder whether that has an effect on the players, that almost a star man isn't there and someone they're used to playing with simply isn't kicking a football on a Saturday come 3:00.
Yeah, perhaps. I'd like to think that the culture's not necessarily just built on one man, but you're certainly right that he is a leader there, and he's and it's what he does on the pitch. I just think we've been so lucky that he's been so fit that we're not used to not seeing Morgan Gibbs-White play when Forest play, and so I just think we look like we were lacking a little bit. But I do think that we've got the depth there to manage without him, and I think, and I almost felt this is a controversial thing to say because of, I mean, Twitter's a cesspit, but some of the sort of opinions on there after the Fulham game, you just think, what are you smoking, lads? Come on. But I mean, I just think that even though we lost the game and even though it wasn't vintage, we look really solid. We don't look like we're so difficult to break through. In terms of corners and free kicks, we're defending them brilliantly. Clearly, what I've said has upset Sarah. She's gone.
Yeah, she's gone. She's had enough of you, mate.
No, but I just think, Max, we're so solid. And how sort of refreshing is it to watch Forest and not worry about every time the opposition comes forward? So, That's my takeaway from the game. And people might be more angry about the fact that we lost to Fulham, or the fact that we weren't as attacking, or the fact that we whatever. I just think even though we lost, we look really good defensively, and that's Nuno's bag, isn't it? And we shouldn't turn our noses up at that, because I know we're Forest and I know we're massive, but we're also Forest in the Premier League. You know, let's just sort of take stock and have a bit of perspective of how far we've come in so short a time. We've had points deductions. We've been threatened with relegation ever since we've been here. We started the season. This is our first loss. Like, you know, I think we're going to be all right. I really do, because I think what Nuno's doing is really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, we were worried then that we'd upset you too much. You'd left the room.
No, sorry. That was my sister. It's my birthday tomorrow, and she was dropping a birthday present.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, bless. Happy birthday for tomorrow.
No,
Sarah.
I'm not counting anymore.
I was just going to ask you actually, Sarah, about the substitutes that Nuno made, and he seems to make them early for Forest, which is good, and he seems to have good in-game management, I'd say, as a manager, which Forest have probably lacked in the past in terms of that head coach position. And I thought Raymond Sosa, Jota Silva, they both looked bright when they came on. Particularly, they were the standout substitutions for me. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. Although I didn't think Jota was as good as what I've seen him in his previous games. That was, again, it's just what I'd seen. Sosa was a little bit off as well, I thought, but they did okay. I do like the way he changes his in-game management. Yeah, and he does use the bench, but we have got a lot stronger bench this year, haven't we? Don't you think? To even last year, you'd look on the bench, you'd be like, who are you going to bring on to change the game? We've got substitutions that can change the game now. Either way, even if you start with that strong team, you've still got them to bring on. And Jota does look good, doesn't he? I just don't know.
He's unbelievable in the air.
Yeah,
he's only a little fella, and he just wins everything in the air. I can't believe it.
Yeah, and he's fast. Yeah, he's good, and I like Sosa as well. He had a couple of missed passes, didn't he? Yeah. Again, the guy behind me was calling Ola for them, but I was like, that wasn't Aina, that was Sosa. But I thought Aina had a good game. But I haven't got any complaints. He had to try and go for the win, didn't he? Or he certainly had to try and get a goal back. And the only way you're going to get a goal back is if you put some pacey players on that look like scoring. And Sosa scored last week. Jota scored for us in the League Cup and in the league. So, yeah, I haven't got a problem with his substitutions. I just, Callum Hudson-Odoi managed to carve out another chance, didn't he? And I also thought Elanga had a good chance, and I would have liked to see he comes in, and I would have liked to have seen him do better with that. I don't know about yourself, but I thought that was quite a good chance when he came down and shot in, and he didn't. He's done that a few times, and I know in pre-season he did it, and he scored, didn't he? When he came in, but they were decent.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of an interesting point about Elanga. We love him for what he does, but I think one of his biggest problems is, that final product. It's flying in the back of the net.
But that's why Man U sold him, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's
you wouldn't have him.
That's what every Man U fan tells me. So say that the only reason you've got him is because he couldn't score. But
we're going to make him into that player that he's going to be. Isn't? I mean, well, Newcastle. It was reported it
50
came
million.
in as 50 million. Yeah, and a swap player with one of theirs. But I did read that it was because he's really good in the changing room. He's integral to the rest of the team. And that the owner didn't want to let him go because of all those other attributes he gives, not just on the pitch, but and I think I noticed in the League Cup when Jota scored, he went straight up to Elanga and hugged him. So he speaks all the 4 different languages, so he's integral to the squad, not just on the pitch, off it as well in the changing room, and I think that's what they are saying. And Ward-Prowse as well, he's been brought in as well for what he brings to the team on the pitch, Andrew. And I was disappointed to see him come off because I thought, I know he's not fit because he's not got the game minutes in his legs, but surely when you chase in a game, you want him taking any free kicks we might get or corners. But I don't know, maybe he had to come off.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, just before we touch on Chelsea, another big game next Sunday, I thought we'd kind of rate Forest's start to the season really out of 10, given some of the negativity this weekend, not from us, but from some other fans. Forest obviously started the season with a 1-1 draw against Bournemouth. Forest then go away to Southampton and win 1-0. Then it's another draw at home against Wolves. And then ultimately that brilliant win, the highlight of the season so far, the 1-0 away win against Liverpool, the 2-2 draw against Brighton, and then, of course, the defeat to Fulham. Max, start with you. What would you rate the season out of 10? For me, I'd be giving it a solid 8, 9 so far, really. And even just 4 points from Brighton and Liverpool, you'd have taken that months before, wouldn't you, when the fixtures came out?
For sure, yeah. 8, 9 out of 10. I think we should have beaten Bournemouth at home and we should have beaten Wolves at home. And we should have got a point out of something yesterday. But it's been better than I think anyone would have ever imagined. I don't think anyone would have thought we'd be at this point, Fulham would be the first game we lose. So I'm really positive start to the season. They've had a really good pre-season, a good run-up. They've signed really good players. The players love Nuno. There's a really strong culture there. There's clear leadership in the team. And there's a clear way of playing. And maybe the reason there's some frustration is because yesterday that maybe we felt like we deviated from that. Yeah, really good start to the season. I'm confident that we can finish, comfortably mid-table.
Yeah, Sarah, what about you?
Well, I immediately thought, it's an 8 out of 10, isn't it? But maybe it's higher than that, like you say. Bournemouth aren't. I mean, I sat there watching Bournemouth. That draw, I know we could have beat them, but they're a good side, aren't they? And he brought all his fast-pacey players on towards the latter part of the game. 1-1 at Bournemouth, you can't really, moan about that, even though we did look like we should have won it. Southampton away, 1-0, great. The highlights, obviously, Liverpool, isn't it? What a great result that was. And I think, for us not to concede as well was superb. So we've got it in us, and I think it was a great start. If you'd have said to me, at the beginning, before we'd kicked a ball, it would have probably been a 9 or a 10, really, for us to be there. But yeah, maybe an 8 because of Saturday. And I think what we need to make sure is that we don't take any negativity into Sunday's game, and we keep that I know we're not unbeaten, but just keep that unbeaten away run going, maybe. And that's not what any of us saw, did we? None of us saw that coming, did we, really? I know we beat Sheffield United and Burnley at the end of last season, but I don't think any of us saw those wins coming from, that win coming from Liverpool and the draw at Brighton. I've been there so many times and just walked away having to listen to, the Brighton fans telling us how good they are. So we lose again. So frustrated. So yeah, it's great. 8, 9, like you say. I'm not going to get Saturday get me too down.
Absolutely. And Chelsea next week, Max, tough game, Cole Palmer show. I mean, as Sarah's said, Forest have got to take that positivity of that away unbeaten record of going away to Liverpool and being and maybe a game like Chelsea suits Forest better. We can play that counter-attacking football. Yeah. We've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Elanga. I mean, of course they'll have done the homework on Callum, given that he's a former player. But you just think that maybe Forest can set up in the way that they actually want to going away on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. I do think Chelsea look like the most threatening attacking side in the league, but they also leak goals as well. I think it could be a really interesting game. I think we'll probably lose it, if I'm just being honest. I think we probably will, if I were to bet. But equally, I think that we haven't really mentioned defensive. I know, well, I've mentioned actually, I banged on about it, but specifically Milenkovic is just that defender we've been crying out for since we've got to the Premier League, and how we managed to get him. The club deserve credit for managing to convince him to come here, and so I wouldn't be surprised. I think if we can just frustrate Chelsea for the first 20-30 minutes, then maybe we can get something out of it, because what we've demonstrated this season is that we've got that mettle. we've got that resilience, and we've got that clear way of playing. I've never seen Callum Hudson-Odoi defend so well. You know, when he first came to the club, it felt his defensive sort of duties were disjointed from the rest of the side. But now this season, you can see the work that Nuno's done with the likes of Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, and how everybody knows their role. And so I just love it if we could just frustrate them a little bit. Then maybe we can get some out of it. But you look at the sort of flair players they've got and how fantastic Cole Palmer is. It's going to be a tough ask to get something from that game.
Yeah, absolutely. We shall see. I will actually add as well, I was lucky to go to the City Ground the other week and for just a meeting, and the staff I spoke to seemed to love life under Nuno at the minute, and there's a real good factor feeling around the club. So long may it continue, and you know, despite a bit of a negative result, shall we say, at the weekend, and yes, a disappointing performance. You know, Forest have started the season very well indeed. I think that does us nicely. Sarah, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't bore everybody to death. So.
Sure.
You didn't. You'll be back on soon. Yeah, you're good. Hey, sorry, you get more calls to go on 5 Live anyway than me and Max.
Oh, no, I think they've binned me this season. I've not had one this season at all, you know. So, yeah, no, I've lost that gig.
I'll make sure you get on again sometime soon. Max, thanks as ever, mate, and keep flying the flag for Forest on TalkSport. Highly recommend everyone goes and checks out Max's stuff, and not just on Forest, but I listened to your stuff on Man City earlier, mate, with the charges, and I just think you do a brilliant job. So nice one.
Oh, thank you, mate. Appreciate that.
Good stuff. Yeah, send me that 20 quid after actually for saying that. As always, give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube if you did enjoy. And just actually another quick one from me before we go. We'll be back this week with a Chelsea preview, of course, and some other bits and pieces. But it's 2 weeks pretty much today that I run the half marathon up in Manchester for Footprints in Nottingham. So I'm going to put the link down in the description. So if you can spare any money, any donations to the charity, that would be greatly appreciated. Such a good cause, and yeah, my legs are feeling it. Shin splints have started recently as well, which isn't great, so I need to work on that. But yeah, any donations much appreciated, and I will promise to stop going on about it after it is all done. But yeah, we shall see you this week back with more podcasts. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us across Spotify and Apple Podcasts. From me, Sarah and Max, we'll see you next time. Come on, you Reds.